What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Yoda Expedition. Today we got the 4Runner up in the air because we are doing some skid plates today from CaliRaised LED. We're going to be doing the front skid plate, transmission skid plate, transfer case, gas tank. We have the lower control arm skid plates as well. So the first thing we need to do is pull off this factory TRD skid plate, and then we can start installing all the new stuff from CaliRaised LED.
All right, guys, while Corey gets the TRD skid plate off, it's pretty straightforward. He's just got some bolts. They're all really easily accessible. He's got the transmission jack there to help him lower it on his own. If you're doing it at home, taking this off, you might want to grab a buddy. In front of me, I have the CaliRaised LED front skid plate. This is a full steel skid plate, and it is powder coated black. It comes powder coated, which is nice. Not all brands do that. And then it does have the oil filter access here, and it has a hole to drain your oil, so you don't need to remove this to do your standard oil changes, which is really nice. Moving towards the back of the skid plate, you see it has these welded on little U-channels around the bolt heads. This is gonna help so that the bolt heads don't get damaged if you do hit rocks, and these will guide it up and over the bolt so that you're able to take this off without having to destroy the hardware. The next skid plate back is gonna be the transmission, also completely steel construction and an easy bolt on. These all come with their own hardware. And then we also have the transfer case that completes the center protection. We're also going to be installing up front. We are going to install the lower control arm skids. These are the same exact part number as the Tacoma ones, so the install should be very similar to the one we did on the Tacoma. And then to wrap it all up, we also have the gas tank skid plate. Again, full steel construction and black powder coated. So let's jump under the truck and see what Corey's doing.
Just got the front TRD skid plate off, which is just 4 bolts, pretty simple. And now I'm going and removing the rear skid plate here, which is also 4 bolts. We'll drop that down. We have a diff drop in here, but I think we're gonna be removing that. It adds just a bunch of confusion, and you have to add spacers and stuff to all the other skid plates to make it fit properly. And it's really not doing a whole lot for us. So we're probably gonna pull those spacers out and just put that back to stock. And once we get this off and the spacers out for the diff, we'll go ahead and install the CaliRaised one, which is going to be a 1-piece, which is going to cover all the way back to here instead of a 2-piece like we currently have. All right, so in order to get the CaliRaised skid plate on, we have to remove these factory reinforcement brackets here. So these are just held on with 2 bolts, one which you already took out for the skid plate, and then you have another one back here. So I'm gonna get this thing up onto this. All right, that should be good. We'll go ahead and just reinstall the hardware that we took out into our new skid plate. So we got the bolts back in that we took out, and then CaliRaised gives you these bolts, some washers, lock washers, and these spacers. These are going to be going in the far back mounting holes for the front skid plate. So we're going to slip the spacer in there between the skid plate and the subframe, and then we're going to go ahead and get this started. So we got the front skid plate on. I don't have anything tight just yet. I'm going to leave it just loose so that we can get everything else aligned. Next thing we need to do is remove these support bars here. So we're going to go ahead and unbolt those. And then these are early production CaliRaised cat shields. We're going to be pulling these off because we have a newer model, and we're going to be reinstalling those at some other time. But I'm going to go ahead now and get those pulled off, as well as these bars. But if you do have the cat shields, these will work together. You just will have to eliminate these bars here. All right, next up, Got the transmission. Go ahead and get that mounted to the one that we just installed. All right, we got the transmission skid plate up in place. That's going to be going above the one that we just put on before. You saw me put those clips on there. Those are going to be your threaded nuts essentially, so that we can get this attached to the first one. So we can go ahead and get these 4 bolts in here lightly installed, and then we're going to let this hang in the back. We're going to get the rear one in place. There's going to be a brace that goes across from one side of the frame to the other. We'll go and get that installed, and then we'll get that skid plate attached to this one. So next up, we're going to be doing the transfer case skid plate. We have the part here that's going to be the brace that goes from one frame rail to the other, and then we have these small little brackets here. There's some plastic inserts on the side of the frame. We're going to be popping those out, and then this is going to drop down in there, and it's going to be holding our nut in place so we can get our thread started. So that's going to go just like this. We'll go ahead and get this other side in place. And now once we put those down into the frame, we can get our cross member bolted in place. So up here on the frame rail, you can see we have this bracket for your brake lines. We're going to take this bolt out to give us a little bit more room. And then you can also see we have this plastic piece right here. We're going to be popping that out. We're going to be putting that bracket down through, and then our nut is going to line up with this hole right here. And then over here on this side, you can see we have another plastic cover. We're going to be popping that out, and then our nut's going to be lining up with this hole here. Last thing we need to do before we put the brace in here is take off this factory skid plate here on the transfer case. So we got 2 12mm bolts here, and then we have 2 on this side as well. All right, now we got the brackets with our nuts, and those are going to be going into the frame. We're going to figure out which one goes where. So as you can see, you're going to be putting it in this orientation. You're going to have the little handle sticking out of the hole, and our nut lines up with the hole there. So we'll go ahead and drop this in place. Just like so. We'll go ahead and do this side. Now we can put this up in place. You can see we have this little notched area here that's going to be going right here on this section of the transfer case. So we'll lift this up in place and we'll get those outer bolts started. I slid this back until it hit this here on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and put this bolt back in here for the brake line bracket. And we'll go ahead and get this in place. The squared holes are going to be lining up with the cross member that we just put in, and then these slotted holes are going to be lining up with the slotted holes here on the transmission skid, and we'll get both of those mounted into these threaded holes right here. Next thing we're going to do is take the big carriage bolts. We're going to be slipping those through here, and then we'll put a washer and a nut on the top side and get those snug down. So we have everything started from front to back here. We can go ahead now and tighten everything down, and then we can move to our fuel tank skid plate. All right, so we have all the stuff in the middle of the 4Runner tightened down. Now we can go ahead and move to the fuel tank skid plate. This is gonna have a few bolts to take out. We have a strap right here that's gonna be going up. We have one bolt there. On the back of the skid plate, you also have another strap that's going up. And then on the other side, you can see we have a strap over here that goes up to a 12mm bolt. And then here in the front, we have 3 bolts that's going through the rock slider into the frame. We're gonna take those out, and that's gonna be it. So if you're doing this on the ground, just get yourself like a jack to put under here and support it while you get these bolts taken out. All right, we got the factory gas tank skid down. We have the new one here on the table along with all of the brackets and the hardware. I'm going to show you what orientation all of this stuff is going to go in, and then we can go and get this installed. So we have this sitting on the table here as if this was the back of the 4Runner and this is the front of the 4Runner. You have your 3 bolts here that are going to be going into the bottom of the frame, also into our rock sliders at the same time. We have this bigger bracket here that's going to be going right here on this back corner. And then we have this other bracket here that's going to be going up front here in this orientation. And then we have our small bracket, and that's going to be going over here just like that. So with that being said, I'm going to go take this under the 4Runner. We're going to get it up into position. I'm going to get these 3 bolts started, and then we can start getting the brackets in place and get those bolts started as well. All right, so we were just about to put this up in place, and this whole section here on the gas tank skid plate is going to be exactly where our foot is for the lift. So I'm probably going to have to put the 4Runner back down, reposition this somewhere else, maybe back here onto the trailing arm mount. That way we have room to get this up in place. If you're doing this on the ground with just a jack, obviously you won't have this issue. Okay, let's get these started. If you're wondering what this thing's doing, when I took the bolts out here on the side for the skid plate, it also holds in the rock sliders, and because we have probably 16 bolts on the side of the rock slider pushing this way, when I took those bolts out, the rock slider shifted over and was not making or not allowing the holes to line up perfectly. So I put this on here to kind of jack up on the rock slider, bring those holes back over so that I can get everything aligned and started. So we got those bolts in over there started. Now we can take this bracket, we'll put this up in place, and we'll take the factory bolt that we took out and we'll get that started up here. And then we'll take one of the new bolts and we'll get that started. We'll get this bracket in place. Again, with our OEM bolt at the top. And then the new supplied bolt on the bottom. And we'll take the shorter bracket here, put it on the inside of the tank skid, and we'll get that bolt started. You might have to move it a little bit so you can get everything lined up. I'm gonna go ahead and snug all of this up. And then I'm gonna go back around and make sure everything's nice and tight. All right, guys, we got the gas tank skid plate finished up, and that was pretty easy. There's just a couple brackets and some bolts, and it pretty much just swaps out with the OEM one. So now we're gonna go ahead and finish this off with the lower control arms up front. So let's go ahead and get those done. So I got one of the lower control arm skid plates here. We have 2 of the carriage bolts, one of the short ones, one of the long ones, and those are going to be going in the holes right here on the lower control arm. All right, so we're going to take this shorter carriage bolt, and that's going to go towards the front here. And then on top, we'll put a washer and a nut. And then we'll take the longer carriage bolt, go through the hole on the back here. Now we just have a bolt here in the front that we can put in. And then for the front of the lower control arm, you have 2 different bolts in the kit. We're gonna be using the longer ones and then a small washer on there. So we'll put that through this small hole here on the lower control arm, and then up on the top, we'll put a big fender washer and the nut.
It was last time.
There we go. We'll just go ahead and tighten these down. These are 14 millimeter. All right, got the driver's side here. We'll go ahead and do the same thing. One last carriage bolt here. We'll get this tightened up. And then we are finished with the CaliRaised skid plates here on 4Runner. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap up this video. We have all the CaliRaised skid plates now installed on the 4Runner. We got the gas tank, we got the transfer case, the transmission, the front, and the lower control arms. Hopefully this video helped you out when it comes to installing these. And if you wanna pick any of these up for your 4Runner, you can head over to yodaexpedition.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.